Tristan Jarry is an Edmonton Oiler and Stuart Skinner is a Pittsburgh Penguin, and Kyle Dubas once again worked his magic. Hunter and I are going to break down the trade right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can follow me across all social media platforms at synonym for wet. Joined as always by my partner in crime, the one and only Hunter Hodes. You can follow him on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can give our show's Twitter account a follow at LO_Penguins. You can find us on Instagram at LockedOn_Penguins and on TikTok at Locked On Penguins. Of course, as always, we appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Don't forget, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. If you follow us on YouTube, which you should, make sure you've hit that notification button. That way you can be among the first to know when we drop our daily Monday through Friday episodes. Before we jump into the big news of the day, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this NFL season, download the FanDuel app by going to FanDuel.com and place your live bets all season long. Let's get right into it, Hunter. The day began with us ready to break down what was a pretty bad effort against the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday night. But Kyle Dubas said, hang on, I got some stuff you got to talk about. Before that, he swings a trade that I don't think a lot of us were expecting to happen this early. And it went like this. Tristan Jarry and Sam Poulin were traded to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for goaltender Stuart Skinner, defenseman Brett Kulak, and a 2029 second round pick. I am going to say this right off the jump. I love this trade. I love everything about this trade. It is a very tidy piece of business for Kyle Dubas. You essentially make a lateral move in goal. Stuart Skinner and Tristan Jarry, aside from Skinner winning some playoff series, they are essentially the same goaltender. Their numbers are extremely similar, and he's worth less money and on an expiring deal. Brett Kulak is a solid bottom pairing defenseman who is also on an expiring deal. The Penguins did not retain a single dollar of Tristan Jarry's salary cap hit, and 2029, the Oilers might not be that good come 2029, depending upon what happens with all their big names if they remain in Edmonton. So you might have gotten yourself a nice little second round pick in 2029. So all in all, this is a great trade by Kyle Dubas.
First off, Pat, I picked the worst day possible to sleep in. I went to bed late last night playing a bunch of video games with my friend. I thought, I'll sleep in. Nothing's going to happen. I woke up at 10:30 a.m. this morning to 25 texts on my phone. I'm like, all right, something big happened. So I checked a few of them, and I was sort of pretty quickly. Like I usually half asleep when I first wake up, and I was like, oh, nope, this was pretty big. So on first glance, I also am a big fan of this move. I didn't think it would happen so soon just because I felt like Kyle Dubas was going to be a bit more patient considering where the Penguins are still in the standings, even though they've lost 3 in a row. But when you get an offer like this, you have to pounce on it. It's obvious that Edmonton was a bit more desperate. Obviously, they're trying to win right now with Connor McDavid. He signed that short-term extension over the summer, so they kind of have until that expires before he might decide to leave potentially, as you alluded to at the end of what you were saying. But you get back Stuart Skinner, who low-key is the Tristan Jarry of the Western Conference, but he does have experience winning some playoff series. He's been very inconsistent throughout his career. I haven't really been that big of a fan of him. However, Pat, his contract does expire at the end of the year, and if he does play well until March, the Penguins could even look to flip him during the trade deadline. So I'd be a little surprised if he was brought back after the season. So you have him for, I think at most, 50-ish games, and then he'll move on. Brett Kulak, he's having a bit of a rough year this year, but last year he was really good for the Oilers, man. Averaged over 23 minutes of ice time in the regular season and in the playoffs. He was fantastic. Well, I should say 23 minutes in the playoffs, a little over 20 minutes in the regular season, and he was really good in a top 4 role. The underlying numbers were really solid. The goalies, when he was on the ice, had an .861 save percentage this year. So he was just getting really beaten up by bad goaltending. I really think a fresh start could do him well here. He's instantly an upgrade on the third pair, though I could see him on the second pair. I really am curious to see if the Penguins want to try him out with Kris Letang, who, let's be real, there's a lot of problems right now with Kris Letang. We're going to discuss that more in depth in the second segment, but I do think that pairing has the potential to at least work in theory with how good Kulak has been defensively throughout his career. He's a very good penalty killer. So you have those two things. And then you get the 2029 second round pick on top of it. Yes, I know it's technically a little over 3 years away, but you're still getting not one, not two, but 3 assets in return for an inconsistent goalie who was in the AHL twice last year and was also waived last year. That's a win any way you slice it. And it also continues to show that Kyle Dubas has a set plan and he is following through with it, even though the results have been fairly good. So definitely an A trade for me in my book. Kyle Dubas has been on a heater for the last little while now, and it continued today. I'm a big fan of this move.
Yeah, I continue to say this about Kyle Dubas. He leaves a little bit to be desired, though this offseason kind of made me feel a little bit better about his free agency work and his ability to sign contracts. Jury's still very much out on that one because we need to see what happens if and when this team gets back to being a contender and what he does when that happens. But he never loses a trade. When it comes to trading, Kyle Dubas, at the very worst, ties a trade. But more often than not, he wins the trade he is involved in. And this is just another example. You brought up something too that I think is kind of an underrated part of this. I know we as Penguins fans and just observers of hockey, we love to look at trades and go, that was a fleecing. He got fleeced. He fleeced them. This kind of feels like a mutually beneficial trade. Now, obviously, when you look at the statistics, you look at the underlyings, it does look like Edmonton kind of just made a lateral move, and they also gave up a bit to get a goalie that 8 months ago they could have had for free if they just plucked him off of waivers. But what have I long said about Tristan Jarry over the past year and a half? He really did strike me as a change of scenery candidate, where I continued to say, and I'll couple it with his start to this season, that he looked like a guy who still had the potential to be, at the very least, a serviceable starting goaltender, but he had a mental block in Pittsburgh. Just with all of the history, all of the performances, there was just something in his mind that when things would go south, he would just crumble. But if you send him to a new organization, a fresh start, a new system, his hometown where he lives in the offseason, he might be a little bit better. And the same could be said for Stuart Skinner. And the same could be said for Kulak. Hell, the same could be said for Sam Poulin. Maybe he goes to Edmonton and he finds a fit there. Obviously, time is going to tell on all of this. But along with loving the trade for the Penguins, I do think that this could be one of those trades that you look back on and go, everybody got what they needed out of this. And there's no winner, there's no loser. It was just two teams that addressed needs, but obviously we got to see how Tristan Jarry plays for the Edmonton Oilers, if he's able to get them over the hump and finally win a Stanley Cup, or if this trade ends up really helping the Penguins get more prospects into their system, right the ship a little bit, and if it really does open the door and lead to the Sergei Murashov era in the net.
And I do think we are going to see Sergei Murashov very soon. I don't think it's going to be, a lot this season. I know a lot of people, Pat, have been clamoring, just bring up Murashov, send Skinner to the AHL. That's not going to happen. Kyle Dubas talked about this up in Cranberry today and said for the foreseeable future, it is going to be Stuart Skinner and Archer Shilovs. And I'm okay with it. See how Skinner does in a change of scenery type of situation. I will say, I know he's been really bad for a good chunk of this season. He's been very up and down, but his last 5 starts, he has been .958 or better in 3 of them. So he's started to play at least a little bit better. The Oilers are horrendous defensively. It's kind of on par, if not a bit worse than the Penguins are defensively. So maybe, again, going to a new city, a new organization will be better off for him. You talked about it with Jarry as well, though. Again, I have to see it to believe it with his splits in the second half and all that. But you're not really going to be seeing Murashov probably a lot this season. He's coming, and I think it's going to be at the start of next season. But there's no reason to rush a prospect like that. You want to get the development of someone like this right because you see him as your franchise goaltender. You don't just want to bring him up to the show and start him in all these games and then ruin his development. No, let him keep cooking in the A. He's going to come up. But for now, they can keep riding Skinner and Shelovs for a little bit. And they're also going to hope that Shelovs bounces back. He was better this week compared to his last 2 starts. Still not what he was to start the season, but it was still a bit better. But that's what they're going to start with overall. Other than that, man, I don't really have too much else on this deal. I'm very okay with it. I thought Kyle Dubas did a really nice job here to get more than enough value for someone who was on waivers less than a year ago, someone who was in the AHL twice last season, you get that second round pick. You get a defenseman who can play on the second pair. Heck, if Parker Wotherspoon gets hurt, God forbid, by the way, he can also slide up to the top pair to play with Erik Karlsson. And then in Stuart Skinner, you get, someone who I'm not that big of a fan of, but he's kind of a low-key version of Tristan Jarry in the Western Conference, but he's also a UFA at the end of the year. Both Skinner and Kulak are UFAs, and they didn't retain any salary on this deal. That's another huge thing. We kept hearing about, the Penguins might have to retain salary. And I kept saying there was no reason to do that because they're not in a position for that to happen. Sure enough, they didn't retain salary. They just took 2 contracts back that are going to be UFAs. So that's also a really big part because I don't think both of those guys are going to come back, at least in my opinion. I think Kulak would have the better chance of coming back than Skinner if he plays well down the stretch, if he's not flipped by the deadline. But all in all, I give this trade an A for Kyle Dubas. Nice job.
You and me both. And like you said about Stuart Skinner before we hit record, if the Steeler fans inside Acrisure Stadium love to go, Muth, when Pat Freiermuth makes a catch, when Stuart Skinner makes a save at PPG Paints Arena, I better hear those stew
He's
chants.
also got that stash, by the way. He's got that hell of a mustache back.
It's absolutely glorious, but really good, tidy piece of business by Kyle Dubas and the Penguins today on the trade market. Now that we had our fun with that, we're not going to have very much fun talking about Thursday night's loss to the Montreal Canadiens. Hunter and I will recap that game when we come back right after this. But first, we've got to tell you about today's first sponsor, and that is FanDuel. NFL Sundays, they move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting, it's the best when the game starts to shift, whether it's a receiver like DK Metcalf getting hot, a Steelers defense heating up, or the momentum flipping after a big turnover, whether it's a strip sack, an interception, you name it. FanDuel lets you jump into the action. We've got the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday night. It is expected to be a pretty exciting game because you've got an offense in Miami that's figuring it out and a defense in Pittsburgh that's doing the same thing. Going to be a lot of opportunities for you to make a little bit of scratch on that game. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. And you can bet the next touchdown scorer, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked in to every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Back here on the Friday edition of Locked On Penguins, I'm Patrick Damp, right alongside Hunter Hodes. And before we get into the game on Thursday night against the Canadiens, a 4-2 loss by the Pittsburgh Penguins, just a programming note because of all the news and the game and the preview. Fan Take Friday, taking a break, getting a little bit of load management this week since we've got quite a bit to discuss. It will return next week, barring any breaking news, if Kyle Dubas has any more trades up his sleeve, but we'll see what happens between now and then. Anyway, not a whole lot, if any, positive to take out of the Penguins' 4-2 loss to the Montreal Canadiens. I am going to say this, though, and I know Hunter's probably going to cringe and shake his head when I say it. They were due for a clunker, and I mean a real clunker. Like, they have had some off nights. They've had some not so great efforts where they figured it out. It's been quite a while this season since they've had a true dud. And that felt like a true dud on Thursday night.
It didn't help that the game was postponed to 7:30 because of a massive accident on 279. There were some players stuck in pretty bad traffic because of that accident. So that was unfortunate. But I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, how can that be your performance coming off what happened on Tuesday? The vibe I got from watching that game in person, and it's also crazy to say, I was at Tristan Jarry's last start as a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Very odd to say now. But the vibe I got, Pat, was that they were still shell-shocked by what happened on Tuesday, and they were playing like it. The decision-making wasn't there. They were always a step slow. They were being outskated. There were a couple of spurts where they had some good moments, but Jacob Fowler was awesome for Montreal, and net made a lot of really nice saves. I mean, it took them a while to even get their first shot on him. He was just sitting in the crease, taking a nap for the first 7 to 10 minutes of the game. He eventually faced a good amount of shots later in the game, but he was locked in from the start. Like, he was fantastic in his debut, but I just didn't like anything about the Penguins process in this one. I thought the second line was especially horrid. Rickard Rakell was activated off injured reserve today. I wouldn't be surprised if they were to give him some reps at second line center. If not, I think it's time to move Kevin Hayes down the lineup and maybe move Tommy Novak to second line center. I know how good Novak has been with Crosby lately. I wrote about it earlier this week for the Hockey News, but they need to do something about that second line until Evgeny Malkin comes back, because they're just getting crushed. And I feel bad for Brazeau and Mantha because they're just not getting much out of Kevin Hayes right now. And I'm not trying to disrespect Kevin Hayes, but I just call it how I see it. He's been really struggling as of late in that spot. I think you either got to move him down the lineup or you got to healthy scratch him now with Raquel coming back. And if they put Raquel back up on Crosby's wing, that's perfect chance for Novak to go down to second line center. If you don't want to do that, then have Raquel be your second line center for a couple games, because they've been really experimenting with that during practices, training camp, preseason, all that good stuff. Pat, we got to discuss Kris Letang. It was another rotten game from him. He gave the puck away right to Alexander Texier very early in the first period. His decision-making was off all night. I mean, he almost, thank God Sidney Crosby is totally okay after taking a shot off his foot. Some friendly fire from Letang later on in that period, but everything is way too hard for him right now. Even the easy decisions, he's having such a hard time with. In each game that he plays, it really sucks to see father time coming for him, just because he's been one of my favorite all-time players ever since he stepped into the league. And when you see a player struggling like this towards the end of his career, I just want to be like, come on, like, can we travel back in time or something like this? Because it really is sad. Now they have Kulak. I'm curious to see if they put him with Letang, who I think when Kulak is on, he is better than Ryan Shea. But again, this year Kulak hasn't been very good. But Letang was especially not good in this one. The skating continues to deteriorate more. He's not bringing the offense. He's out to lunch in his own zone. Nothing doing there. I don't even think Erik Karlsson played that well in this game. There aren't many players that I can really say played well, if I'm being 110% honest with you. It was a complete dud. And if they had won one of these last two games against Dallas or Anaheim, or even both, I would definitely excuse it. Like, yep, these games happen. It's a dud. You had the delay to 7:30, all that, but that can't be your performance coming off what happened on Tuesday.
No, that's the rub, is that coming off the 2 losses that they had, it's really hard to give them a pass for that effort on Thursday night. I will say this, and it is kind of the underrated issue with Kris Letang right now, is that the swing is wild when you look at his on ice performance and analytics, because all of the shot attempts against per 60, shot attempts per 60, unblocked attempts against per 60, him and Shea are at the bottom of the barrel for Penguins defensemen. But then when you go to the offensive side of it, he's near the top of shot attempts for, unblocked shot attempts for, scoring chances for. There just needs to be a leveling out. And I do think if Kulak can find his form next to him, because right next to Kris Letang at the bottom of the barrel on those against attempts is Ryan Shea. So if you can find a way to stabilize that defensive game with Kulak, I don't hate Letang's game this year. He is helping whatever line he's with generate offense. It's just he has become such a black hole defensively that it's negating all of that positive to a point where you can't even really mention the positive because of how much he's dragging the team down defensively. So we'll see what happens with that. I do have to give a bit of a shout out, even though it wasn't as good as it's been. I did like the kid line again against the Canadiens. I thought they had some good moments, but it was a night where the bar was really, really low and they just barely cleared it. I know that we like him on this show. I know that he has had his moments, but I don't know how much longer you want to keep Koivunen on that line, depending upon who comes up, who comes back. But I will say on the other side of that, Rutger McGroarty and Ben Kindle have some serious chemistry together. Those two are finding each other really well. They're working and playing off each other really well. Maybe Koivunen turns it around. I don't think he's been horrible or bad or anything, but you can definitely tell if you're ranking that line 1 to 3, he is easily number 3.
Koivunen's been very up and down this season. I think last night was one of his really poor performances, just wasn't seeing the ice really well. And he's had other games where he's seen the ice well. He's gotten a lot of good chances. Obviously his goal was really nice, but I still want to see a bit more out of him. That's the thing. I thought Rutger last night, in my opinion, Pat, I don't think he played that well. He fumbled that attempt on that 3-on-1. And yeah, it was a little bit of bad luck too, but I do think Rutger is fighting a little bit these last couple of games. I think he's going to be totally fine in the long run, by the way, but I just didn't really like his game last night. If I had to say one player was the best out of anyone, I guess I'd say Ben Kindle. He was all over the offensive zone. Once again, doing everything in his power to set up offensive chances. Sid did have that really nice pass to Brian Russ to try and get the Penguins back in the third period, but they gave up that goal to make it 4-1 literally seconds later. It was like, oh, okay. Comeback was, I guess, cool outlasted for like 10 seconds in terms of them making an attempt to come back in this one.
And
so
even though he's no longer a Penguin, I will give some credit to Jarry. I thought he did the best that he could behind a team that was completely juiceless for the first 30 minutes of the game.
The Caulfield goal he would want to have back. I didn't like that one. I don't think you can allow a goal there in that situation. The first one, it's 1-on-1. Maybe part of me wants to see a save there, but I'm more so obviously blaming Letang for that turnover. You shouldn't be putting Jarry in that situation, though. Again, a small part of me wants him to make that save. That's also me being very picky. The Caulfield one, though, that one can't go in. That's really bad.
Yeah, but again, even though he is no longer the Penguins goaltender, I do have to give him credit for trying his best to keep his team in the hunt as best he could when they just had absolutely nothing in front of him. But at this point, it's time to just burn that footage, move on. You've got a new goalie coming to town. You've got a new defenseman coming to town. In this weekend, you've got a home back-to-back, and it starts on Saturday afternoon against the San Jose Sharks. and then the Utah Mammoth on Sunday afternoon. Hunter and I will get you set for those games when we come back right after this. Before we do that, though, we've got to tell you about our second sponsor, and that is Monarch. The holidays, they're an amazing time of year, but they can get overwhelming fast. Whether it's travel, gifts, parties, or year-end expenses, it's really easy to lose track of your money this time of year, and that is exactly why Monarch continues to be such a game changer for me. If you want to keep your finances under control this holiday season, you got to be using Monarch. It was rated the best budgeting app of 2025 by the Wall Street Journal. It's the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, simple, and easy-to-use dashboard. Holiday spending, it can become a lot, and their holiday spending category can become your lifesaver. It's exactly what you need to see what's left in your gift budget and travel budget in real time. In minutes, you're able to check your net worth, link all your accounts, and keep track of the contributions before all the deadlines. And it's great for you when you got to buy all those gifts. You got to see what you're doing. You got to see what your budget is. Make sure you're not going over and make sure you're not extending yourself. It's an absolute godsend. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with the code LOCKEDONNHL. Back here on the Friday edition of Locked On Penguins, I'm Patrick Damp, running right alongside Hunter Hodes, and no rest for the Penguins because Thursday night might have been tough. There might be a whirlwind trade this morning, but they're right back at it for two straight this weekend at PPG Paints Arena. San Jose Sharks on Saturday, Utah Mammoth on Sunday, both 3 o'clock starts, both chances to get 2 crucial points.
Yeah, that's really all there is to it. They need to win both of these games this weekend. I want to see 4 out of 4 points. Sweep this back-to-back at home against teams that I think are right there for the taking. Utah, they're going to be without Logan Cooley for a while, which really sucks because Cooley has had a really good year and he's from the Pittsburgh area. 14 goals, 23 points in 29 games. They still have Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Dylan Gunther, JJ Peterka, since coming over from Buffalo, has been good. Utah had that really nice start to the season. Since then, though, Pat, they've kind of faltered. They're 14-15-3, 5th in the Central Division. They've lost 3 in a row. They do have a game tonight against Seattle, and then they come over to play Pittsburgh on Sunday. So, again, that's going to be a lot of travel. Obviously, their travel day will be Saturday, but they're kind of reeling right now. Lost 3 in a row. They're without one of their best players. I think this game could definitely be there for the Penguins. Looks like Rickard Rakell is hopefully going to come back, which I will say, I didn't have that on my bingo card. I know we were asked about that earlier this week. I even said it's probably more likely that it's next week, but he was activated, off injured reserve today, a lot earlier than expected. Kyle Dubas on the GM show last week, Pat, he's like, yeah, he's 3 to 4 weeks away. He got activated 9 days later. So just a little off there on that one, Kyle. But hey, good news that he's ready early. That's big for the Penguins. And then you will also have the San Jose Sharks, 15-14-3. They are better this year. They're 5th in the Pacific. Macklin Celebrini, brother. I mean, oh my God. He has been on an absolute tear this year. 15 goals, 44 points in 32 games. He is appointment television, people. I'm telling you, he is appointment television. He actually might make Team Canada this year too, and he has a really damn good case. The things that he can do with the puck on his stick are absolutely unfair. He skates like the wind. His decision-making is great. His hockey sense is also outrageous. He is so fun to watch. Will Smith, he has also been awesome for the Sharks this year. Him and Celebrini, man, are so great. 12 goals, 29 points in 32 games. I still think they need more from William Eklund, that is. Tyler Toffoli, they need a little bit more from Wenberg, but Celebrini and Will Smith make the Sharks must-watch TV anytime they play late at night. So if you have a ESPN Plus subscription or something like that, turn on some Macklin Celebrini games because he is awesome. Truly. So That game was first Saturday, then it's Utah on Sunday. Kind of went a little backwards there. That's okay. But still, these are games that the Penguins can definitely win, and I think they need to win.
I'm with you. You need 4 points out of this weekend. It's a San Jose team who, being better than expected is nice, but they still aren't good. They are very top heavy with their young talent, and then it's a lot of meh behind them, but that's the part of the rebuild that they're in. Utah loses arguably probably their best player. You got to be able to take advantage of that. And you're right. I usually kind of balk at this guy is the next Sidney Crosby comparisons. Celebrini's making a nice little case that he very well could be, because everything you said, he operates at 100 miles an hour and he's not fast for nothing. He does everything at top speed and it is a treat to watch. He just, you name it, he is good at it. He can score goals. He can make passes. He can set things up. He can play well defensively. He can beat you in the corners. He can beat you with his speed. He can beat you with his hands. The kid genuinely should be on Team Canada, and it certainly doesn't hurt that in the offseason he did quite a lot of training with none other than Sidney Crosby. So that is going to be a really fun game, if for no other reason you get to watch Celebrini and Smith. And then on Sunday, I know that it's tough. I know that playing a back-to-back at home, and they're both late afternoon games, is annoying, but given the way this week has gone, with the way you lost to Dallas, the way you lost to Anaheim, and then a no-show against Montreal, you went from having that 3-game road swing against Philly, Tampa, and Dallas, and coming out with 5 of a possible 6, to now that you've lost these games, your good start to a hectic month is falling away from you. So you got to get back on track here. And 2 wins really, to me, is how this has to go, because then on Tuesday, Tristan Jarry and the Edmonton Oilers come to town. Isn't it funny how that works? But I'm right with you. Got to get 4 out of 4 this weekend, and we will be watching all of it, and we will be back on Monday to recap those games, go over any other news, get you set for the week, and everything else. So for now, for Hunter Hodes, I am Patrick Damp. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we will be back on Monday.